y'all, this week, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to make this week, to be honest. I have no clue, so we're just going to kind of wing it this week. Today, I'm feeling like making some chicken wraps. So, I'm going to be making some cheddar chicken bacon ranch wraps. It just sounded good to me, so that's what we're going to do today. I've got some chicken here that I just cut in half and then cut into strips. And we're going to start off with that. I've got some buttermilk here. We're just going to let these marinate in some buttermilk and some spices and get these all nice and tender. To that buttermilk, I'm going to add in some baking soda. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know I love adding baking soda to any kind of marinade. It just helps the meat get really, really tender, and it doesn't take that much to do its job. So I just added about a half of a cup of buttermilk, maybe, and half a teaspoon of baking soda. Now we're going to go in with some ranch. Now I'm going to put the ranch powder in here and also in the flour. So I'm not going to add too much in here because we are going to be adding more later into the flour mixture. So I guess about 1.5 teaspoons will do the job. So I'm going to set that right there. And I want it to have a little kick. So I'm going to add this ancho chili onion and garlic oil, just a little bit, not too much. I don't want it to be too spicy, but I want it to have kind of like a little kick. So maybe a teaspoon, half a teaspoon, however much you want. Okay, and I'm going to give this a nice little mix. We're going to cover this in some plastic wrap, and we are going to let this marinate. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cook up some bacon. I'll do that in the air fryer because when bacon cooks on the stove or in the oven, it just pops everywhere, and the air fryer is easier to clean. And I am all about that today. So, as you can tell, it's getting all nice and bubbly. That's because the baking soda and the buttermilk. So that is good to go. I'm going to put some plastic wrap on this, clean up a little bit, cook some bacon, and then we'll get this in the frying pan and let it start cooking. Okay, so these have been sitting here for a little while. I've got my bacon done. It is right here cooling. And I've got some flour in my bowl. I've got about 2 cups of flour. And we're just going to season this up. First, I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Okay, now I'm going to add just a little bit of onion powder. You can season with whatever flavors you want. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of that and about a teaspoon and a half of garlic powder. And I'm going to add some thyme, about a teaspoon. And to carry over some of that smoky flavor from the ancho chili oil, I'm going to add a little bit of smoked paprika. You can also add some cayenne pepper to this if you want to keep it spicy. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon and a half of smoked paprika, and it's going to give it a little bit of color as well. And also, we're going to add in some ranch powder. I'm going to add in about 3 tablespoons. And I'm just going to mix this up until everything is nice and combined. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the plastic wrap off of that. And I'm going to add some of this buttermilk liquid and just mix that in with my flour mixture. And then we're going to give that another little mix, and it's going to make these nice little clumps in there, and it's going to give it a nice little crunch when we fry it up. Speaking of frying, I've already got a skillet on the stove with about 1.5 inches of oil in there, and it's coming up to temperature. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now all I'm going to do with clean hands is take some of my chicken here and just bread this all over, make sure it's nice and well coated. And we're going to put it on this plate while we coat the rest of our chicken. Alright y'all, so I've got all of my chicken breaded. It's ready to go. My oil is hot, so let's head on over to the stove and get this in the pan. Alright, so my oil is hot. I've got a sheet tray here with some paper towel and a little tray on top to catch the grease so that the chicken stays crispy. And all I'm going to do now is fry up my chicken. Just make sure when you add it into the pan, you go away from you so the chicken doesn't pop that hot grease on you. And these are just going to cook for just a few minutes on each side until they're nice and golden and cooked completely through. Now make sure you don't overcrowd the pan so these get nice and crispy. So I'm going to go ahead and let these cook. I'm going to clean up a little bit, and then I'll meet you back, and then we will assemble everything. Alright, so these have a nice golden color to them, and they're cooked completely through. So I'm just going to remove them and put them on my little cooling rack here so they can stay nice and crispy. And I'm going to finish up the rest of these chicken tenders. Slice up some lettuce, some tomato, and get everything ready to go. Then I'll meet you back here.
Alright y'all, it is time to assemble these delicious cheddar chicken bacon ranch wraps. These are so good, and I make these quite often, especially when I don't know what to make. These are pretty much my go-to, and you can assemble these however you want, add whatever you want. I just added some of the chicken to the tortilla, and then I added some bacon, some cheese, tomato, some lettuce, ranch, hot sauce, and wrapped it up, and this was good. Now I just served it as is. I didn't have anything else to go with it because these are pretty filling in themselves, but this is what we have for dinner today, and it was so good.
Alright y'all, today I woke up and I was just craving some soup. So I'm going to be making my vegetable soup. It is so easy. It's very delicious. I've made it the exact same way for many, many years. It's so good. Now, if there's something in here that you don't like a vegetable or whatever, you can certainly take it out or add whatever else you want to it. So I'm going to be making a variation of my vegetable soup today. And I'm going to be adding either some pasta or some rice to it. You can add either or, and it turns out delicious. But we'll see when we get there. So I've got my Dutch oven here, and it's just coming up to heat. And I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil, probably about a tablespoon. And I'm going to add some ground beef and some diced onion. And we're just going to break this up. I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't want to add too much, but I do want to season the meat. Okay, so now I'm just going to mix this together and let this cook until the ground beef is cooked through and the onions are nice and tender. Okay, so my ground beef is pretty much almost cooked through. I'm going to go ahead and add in my tomato paste now because I want it to kind of toast up a little bit, but you can add this later. I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons, which is pretty much what I have in here. So we're just going to finish off this tube and get this all nice and mixed up. Now, if you're using a fattier beef than I do, I use a pretty lean beef, and if it has any like extra grease in there, you can go ahead and drain that off before you add in your tomato paste. So we're just going to make sure this is all nice and combined. Let this start to toast up. Now I'm going to go in and add in my seasonings. I've got some paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, parsley, thyme, red pepper flakes, all of the good spices. I'm going to add that right in there and let this toast up as well. It should take about 30 seconds or so. Now you can also add in some garlic, some minced garlic. I'm just going to skip that step today and just make it a little bit more simple and just use garlic powder. And I can smell that, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my mixed vegetables. Don't forget your bay leaf. I've got 1 bay leaf going in. So I'm just using a small little bag of mixed vegetables, and they're still pretty frozen, but that's fine. They'll thaw. Get that all nice and mixed. And this soup comes together very quickly, and it's so good. Now I'm going to go in and add in a can of diced tomatoes with the juice. Give that another little mix, and this will help deglaze the pan or the pot and get all of that goodness off the bottom of the pot. I've got some beef broth here. Now you can use any kind of beef broth that you like or have on hand. It'll work. So I'm just going to add that right in here. Okay, give that a nice little stir. I've also got some potatoes here that I've just got soaking in about 1.5 cups of water, and I'm going to use this extra water to cook my pasta or my rice because I want that extra water to have so my soup stays a soup when I add in my pasta or my rice. So I'm just going to mix all of this together. Now if you're adding rice, I would add about 1/2 cup. But since I'm going to be using pasta today, I'm going to use about 3/4 to 3/4 to 1 cup of pasta. Now I'm using elbow macaroni pasta, but you can use whatever kind you want. So I'm going to add about 1 cup. That should be good. And I'm going to give this a mix, and I'm going to let this come to a boil. And then I'm going to reduce this down to a simmer and let this cook until those potatoes are nice and tender and that macaroni noodle is nice and soft and cooked through. It should take about 15 to 25 minutes. So I'm going to let this do its thing, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it gets done.
All right, y'all, the soup is done. The house smells delicious. The soup is so good. Now you can serve this with whatever you want. Typically, I will do like a biscuit or cornbread, maybe some crackers. Whatever you want to serve this with, it goes perfectly with anything. I've even served it with tortillas. So this is what we have for dinner today, and I want to go ahead and apologize. My microphone is either too low or too high, so I've got to figure out that balance. But you can also add some beans to this as well. I've added kidney beans, black beans, white beans. I've added baby llama beans. They all go so well with this. But I will leave the link to the recipe in the description box below.
All right, y'all. tonight I'm just going to be doing something super simple. My daughter's got a lot of activities she's got going on with school tonight, with games and everything. So I'm just going to do something super simple. We're going to make some pesto chicken. I'm going to make some rice and some vegetables to go along with it. But we're going to go ahead and work on our chicken so that way it can marinate and we can get it on to cook. So I've got some chicken thighs here. You can do chicken breast, whatever you like, or have on hand. It will work just fine. I'm going to be doing chicken breast today. And I've got some pesto. I made some pesto, and I will leave the link to the recipe that I used down below. I'm just going to add, I don't know, about a third of a cup of pesto onto my chicken here. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt, just a little bit, because there's salt in the pesto and I don't want it to be too salty. We're going to add some pepper, and I'm going to add just a little bit of red pepper flakes, probably about a quarter of a teaspoon, not too much at all. And we are going to mix this together, make sure all of this chicken is nice and coated in that pesto. And we're going to let this marinate for however long you want. I'm going to do about 30 minutes before we get this going on to cook. So just make sure everything is nice and combined and well coated. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm just going to put a lid on this and set this to the side and let this marinate. And then in the meantime, I'm going to clean up and get ready to make my rice and vegetables and get this going on the stove. All right, y'all. So my chicken has been marinating for about an hour, and I've got my little grill pan here, and it's up to heat. I've got it on, we'll cut it down to medium low. So I don't want it to be too high and then the outside cook faster than the inside. But this chicken smells so good, it's not even on the pan yet. I'm just going to add my chicken here. And of course I'm going to cook this in batches because I've got a pretty good amount of chicken here. So I'm just going to put this here, and we're going to let this cook for a few minutes on each side until it's nice and cooked through. And then we will flip them over, let them cook on the other side, and then remove them from the pan and continue with the second batch. So this should take about 5 minutes or so per side. So I'm going to go ahead and let this cook up, and then I'll show you everything when it gets done.
Y'all, my camera decided to delete the rest of the footage, but it's okay. We got this. I'm just going to walk you through. I made some rice. All I did was 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of chicken broth in the Instant Pot, rice function, let it do its thing. I made some asparagus. My daughter loves asparagus, so I just made it simple. Butter, salt and pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, and I called that good. And then I just served that with the chicken with some of that extra pesto sauce on the top. And you guys, this was so delicious. We all enjoyed it. Definitely will be making this again, but I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to check the links in the description box below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.